Welcome to the podcast mini series, How to Plan Your Wedding in 10 Days. I'm Andie, the founder of The Bridal Journey, and along with me, I've got Georgie from After the Rock, and we're going to guide you through planning your wedding in just 10 days. Today, we're tackling the most important task, setting your budget and creating your guest list. So, this is a bit of a big episode and there's a lot to cover, but these decisions will shape the rest of your planning process. So, budget and guest lists can feel really daunting. And, Georgie, what's the first step to making these manageable?
So, look, I'm going to start with budget because it is honestly one of the first questions that I ask all of my clients before we even engage with them and they bring us on board as their wedding planner. Even the Sultan of Brunei has a budget. So, it's really important that you get clear on who is investing in your wedding as well. Like, are you paying for this yourselves as a couple? Are there other people who are going to contribute? Because you need to be crystal clear on this from the get go in order to be able to make any decisions, particularly around choosing your venue, which is that starting point to actually be able to start planning your wedding. So we do have a really handy little template in the downloadables as well that you can have a look at that's got some line items for you to start to fill that out. It's super important that you really understand what all those line items could possibly be. And the more clear you are with your budget, the better result you're actually going to get from your wedding because you're going to, again, go back to those priorities that we spoke about in the first episode and you're going to really understand what is important to you and invest in those elements and not invest in the things that aren't important.
And I just want to cover off like a misconception. You will Google the average Australian wedding budget or how much people are spending in US. Now, I know that you work obviously with the more higher end of clients,
Yeah.
but how much would you say like an average wedding is like what are couples uh you know should be spending on a wedding that they might not see on Instagram and it's this perfect wedding, but on average how much do people kind of need to budget for a wedding?
Look, it varies. As you said, there are, if you Google it, I think at the moment
It's
it
like
says,
$40,000.
yeah,
So we're not most people
yeah,
are not doing a wedding for 40,000
no,
unless you're having like 10 people, 20 people and
absolutely.
yeah.
So look, I always say when clients ask me, how much does a wedding cost? I say that if you're in a beautiful structure, I'm just going to like give away some secrets here, but if you're in a beautiful structure that already has a roof over its head, you've got bathrooms in there, you've got the caterers already in there, you've probably got like basically a roof over your head and space, you're not having to bring in any extra infrastructure. I say that that sort of looks around $1,000 a head. That sounds extreme. I understand the kind of weddings we do probably start from around that point, and it goes north of that very quickly when you're bringing in anything sort of if you're going into a marquee or you're doing any infrastructure like that, then it goes north of that quite quickly. But honestly, we probably get around, up to 10 inquiries a week and we only do 10 weddings a year. So of all of those people, I would say majority are looking at, 120,000 plus really for their wedding. And again, you can do it for less. It's just that that's where it's actually really looking these
Yeah,
days.
and I think I've done a few polls in the past and it has sat 80 grand plus, I reckon, when I can't
Yeah.
remember the exact details and maybe I'll need to bring this up in a poll again soon. But I feel like you're right. It was probably bang on like that 80 to 150
Yes.
on average, most of my audience. And this is obviously different currencies and stuff and whether or not people were clicking, understanding it was AUD. But yeah, it was sitting like around that mark, I
Yeah.
think. So I think you're pretty bang on with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge investment. Of course, you can do it cheaper, but yeah, that's
And
kind
then,
of
and then we know that there's like a lot of, you can Google how much do I need to spend here. So if you're breaking up this, let's just say $120,000 budget, where is most of the money sitting with that? Like how do people delegate percentages to each amount? Like where do you even begin with it?
yeah. Look, these days it's a little bit difficult. Back in the day, you used to say like 46% of your budget was the venue, so the food and drinks and venue used to be 46% of your budget, and then it would go down in varying rates. So like 20% would be styling, 10% would be the band, and then smaller percentages for things like the church and specifically like cake and things like that. These days, people are investing a lot more in their styling than they used to. So it is increasing a little bit. But you do have to think, let's even if we go back to the basics, when you're looking at a venue and you think, oh, that's not too bad, like that price isn't too bad, and you want to go ahead with it, you've really got to understand where everything else could sit. So it is about putting in line items of like, all of the elements that could be part of your wedding and putting a figure next to that and just getting an idea of where that could possibly sit because lots of things add up. You've got to remember that there are delivery charges. You've got to remember that, if you're having a ceremony outdoors versus in a church, there's infrastructure that you need to bring in like chairs and signing table and florals and entertainment and maybe catering for that as well. So it might just make you pivot as well with regards to what you choose from your venues. Because once you've decided on your venue, you really need to stick to that and keep going down that path. And it might mean that you miss out on things that you really wanted because you haven't gone through the entire budget yet.
And I think people need to think too, like as you said earlier, with delegating with venue and styling is so much these days. Can you invest in maybe a venue that needs less styling so the venue speaks for itself? It might, like I went to a venue recently called Feathertop Winery. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've heard of it.
No.
And it's very like Tuscan vibe inspired. And you probably don't need that because it's beautiful rolling hills around you. You probably don't need that much styling. And,
Absolutely.
it might be a lot more cost per head, for instance, and you're investing money within the venue, but you can strip down your styling a lot. So
Yeah,
does it
definitely.
just depend, give or take, what the venue needs? And then let's not go into marquee weddings because that's a whole nother ball game. And
Yeah, just to touch on that, really, like everybody, a lot of the time clients will come to me and say, "Oh, but we've got our own house and we're going to do it at our house and we're going to be able to bring in our own alcohol." It is never cheaper to do a wedding at home, bring in infrastructure. It just isn't. It is beautiful. It's amazing. It's sentimental. It's awesome. I love doing weddings at home. I love doing weddings on private properties and on, in beautiful locations, overlooking the opera house and things like that. Stunning, but it is definitely not a more cost effective option. Definitely look at the venue as a whole, and you want to be looking at the beauty that it already has in it and utilizing that. So you might think that the venue hire or the minimum spend is quite high, but if you factor in that they've already got incredible chairs, tables, cloths, like all of this infrastructure that looks really great. And the decor and styling, let's be honest, restaurants invest so much in their decor these days that you've already got a beautiful foundation to just be able to add your unique touches on top of.
and I really want to get into like specifics and details with we've got the budget spreadsheet in our downloadable PDF,
Yeah.
but can we just do a theoretical wedding? So I've got, let's just say 90 to 100 grand budget.
Mm.
What percentage should I delegate to each roughly? So let's just
Okay.
say the main ones. So like venue, florist, just say the average person. Maybe I don't want to go too crazy with florals and stuff. Like, how much would you roughly break up the percentages for each one for those people that just don't really understand or know? Because I think people,
You're making
I know
me
this
do
is a
maths.
hard
It's a
question,
tough one.
but I know people get really stuck with florals. They don't understand that this is quite a hefty budget. So, like, what order kind of would you put spending? Maybe we'll do it like what order? So we've got our venue first. We know
Venue
that
first. Yeah, this
maybe
is a way easier question to answer.
30% of the budget.
Yeah, approximately. Yeah,
Then
40,
what would
40.
come under that?
And then I would say that next would be, your floral and styling and entertainment. Look back at your priorities,
Entertainment. Yeah, so it
like
could be either
entertainment,
or.
floral styling,
Yep.
photography, videography. It's right up there.
Yeah.
Um,
Because we're looking at photographers between 5 and 10 grand maybe for like
yep,
if you just want your, you're not going super, super high end or
sure.
around that, do you think?
Yeah, for sure. And then I also like your entertainment obviously is going to be really important. But I mean, you could go like it's band or DJ, it's choirs, there's a lot of things that you could do in there, but I put that quite high up on the list as well. Audio visual can be quite expensive. So your AV, so your lighting and sound, if the venue doesn't already have some of that
And that
stuff.
might be, more so if you're having a marquee,
Yeah,
but
but also in
sometimes, yeah.
venues, like you often like you might want some
There's
of that.
always an extra cost too that the venue will put on, isn't it?
Yes.
As like not a hit, a bit of a hidden cost, a bit of a cheeky.
Yeah. It
If
is
you want
really
microphones, that's going to be another 2 grand. Yeah.
exactly. So you do want to look at that fine print as well when you're looking at your contracts of
Yeah.
what it includes. But yeah,
And
it's
then it filters down from there. So,
exactly
yeah,
like
venue,
cake and
styling,
yeah,
entertainment, and then we kind of trickle down from that depending on, as you said, where your priorities are.
exactly. And one thing that I will often find with my clients is we will get to a point where they wanted a big outdoor garden ceremony and then to move into something else for the reception. And a lot of the time we will pivot to something like a church because regardless of denomination but you've got a roof over your head, you don't need to bring in extra infrastructure. And to be honest, the ceremony often is all about the couple. So you might not need to hire that beautiful private estate, or you might not need to do the garden wedding where you don't have a backup, and then you've got a lot of stress around that as well. So don't forget when you're looking at venues that you're not just looking at the reception, you're looking at the ceremony too.
Okay. And are there any tips and tricks when managing a budget?
Be really honest with people about where your budget sits. If you've done that little spreadsheet and you're like, I want to spend $10,000 on flowers and not a cent more, go to the florist that you love, tell them that's what your budget is, and work with them to get the best result. I think when we kind of keep that information to ourselves, we're not going to get the best result, and they are there to help you. Like, they want to be able to produce something incredible for you, but it will mean that they will, like with all suppliers, you want to do something to completion or not at all. I often think it's good to just strike something if you're not going to do it properly. Like, you may as well invest in the things that are actually important to you. Definitely priorities, priorities, priorities. Invest in the things that you care about. And be really honest too. Like, if you've reached out to a supplier, they're too expensive, but you really love them and you're like, this is my budget, just tell them. You never know. There could be a situation in which, oh, I'm in that area anyway that day. I could do yours as well. Or I connected with you as well. I would love to work alongside you. Or they might help you save in other ways. Like, for example, there might be a celebrant you really love and they can bring along their own PA system, or they can also MC the night. Like, really think about, if you really connect with someone, don't just ghost them. Like, go back and have another conversation just in case they actually could have been a really good fit for you.
Great. And then when tracking our budget, most vendors will ask for a deposit
Yes.
that is non-refundable, and then they ask for certain deposits throughout the 12 months or planning time. Is that how
Yes.
it generally works?
Yes, and usually everything is due before the wedding as well, so all payments will be up front, and that's just something for you to manage along the way. You're gonna, no matter what, I've been doing this for a really long time, we try and get our vendors to send us their invoices, but a lot of the time things are changing all the way up until very close to the time, and you'll get a flood of invoices, within that last month of your wedding. So just be prepared, be ready with cash flow. Put that money all into a separate account so that you know that that money is there, or if people are contributing as well, like, get that money maybe and put into a special wedding account just so that you can manage that admin and there's not that extra stress in the lead up.
And then we should always have a little extra fund because
Right.
everybody goes over.
Yeah, look, when we probably do our estimates, to be honest, we often look like we're saving our clients money because we probably go quite high with our estimates. And I'd recommend you do the same. Like, it's really nice to put an exact figure into your budget, but always I say add like another 10% to every line item when you're planning, so that you don't have any, like, we actually don't do contingencies with our clients. We actually probably go a little bit higher than you think you would need to on all of the line items, just to kind of factor in that
That's
as
a good
well.
tip.
Mm.
And I just want to touch on, because this is also talking about um, our guest list.
Mm.
Have you got any tips for creating a guest list and touching on that? Because we know that kind of ties into budget, because depending on how many people you're inviting is going to really affect your budget.
For sure. Look, with guest lists, it is so hard. Always just start with your immediate friends and family, like the 100%, the bridal party, your family that you're actually going to, invite to your wedding. Write them down first and give yourselves little rules as well. So if you have an idea of, like, in those early conversations with priorities, do have a conversation around whether you want a bigger or small wedding, like how many people you envisage that being. And always, like, a lot of the time couples will come to me and say, "Oh, we're gonna have 60 people." And I'll always ask straight away, "Have you written your list?" And they'll always go, "Oh, no, but it'll be 60." I'll be like, "Great, great, great. Write your list." And 9 times out of 10, sometimes they're absolutely spot on, but honestly, 9 times out of 10, there'll be an additional at least 20 or 30 people that they're like, "Okay, this is as small as we can get it." It's gonna be really helpful for your search as well, and for that overwhelm and knowing the venues that you can choose, but also think about little rules. So we have rules, like, we'll tell our clients, like, if the guest is in the vicinity that you could see them, like, live around the corner, and you haven't seen them for a year, should they be on your guest list? And, like, just go through, if one of you have never met their partner, should they be on the guest list? Are you going to stick to traditional rules, like, you have to invite someone if their partner is engaged? Like, are you going to ditch that rule? So just create those little rules for yourselves, and sometimes people will give 30% to one family, 30% to another, and 30% to the couple, with 10% outliers, but like of how many people you can each have on your lists. Some people will stick by that rule, but again, it depends on who is contributing to the wedding. So those who pay get a say. So if you've got people contributing to your wedding, you probably have to give them some invites as well.
Great. And have you got any other final words about guest lists or budgets that we didn't mention?
Guest lists, like there are so many times where couples will tell us that the year after their wedding they didn't see 20% of the guests and they probably won't for the rest of their lives.
Mm,
So really think about who you want sitting there. Our friend Amy actually made a really good point before, just saying, it's just it's the respect of the people who are there to say no to the people who aren't. So it's like if you want to make sure that the people in that room feel really special and that they are your people. Um, I don't think you regret not inviting people. So, like, once you've cut down that list and you've made that decision, you're going to be happy. And then with budget, get clear on your budget early on. There is no point poking your head in the sand and making decisions without knowing where it's going to sit. It's going to cause so much stress for you, so much stress for anyone who is assisting as well with payments. You want to be crystal clear, and it's going to make the decision process throughout so much easier for you.
great. I think we've got a lot to walk away with from this episode. So much advice. And don't forget, we also have a budget template as well as a guest list template in the PDF in the show notes, which will
Yes.
kind of guide you along the way because this is a big one. So, and this will kind of determine a lot of the rest of the planning. So next week we've got choosing your venue.
Amazing. Can't wait. Thanks, Andy.